Welcome back. This is our first bulls and bears of the year. It's a bit heavy. We're taking a look at trade, tax, debt, and we'll also later on touch on employment. In case you're just tuning in, you're finding us in the middle of the discussion of trade, tax, and debt. Before we can move specifically to tax, I mean, Joy, I have to rope you in. As much as we have seen so much in our economy in terms of President Uhuru Kenyatta with his foreign trips, going abroad and bringing us food baskets, Kenya has held economic forums here in Nairobi quite heavily. But as we wait for those things to translate, what practical advice can you give Wanjiku to start practicing today to sort of help her and her business maintain?
In the first place, Kenyans are very resilient. And Kenyans have come to terms that their government does not have a strong social safety state. That is, if you have 9 children, you can't educate them, or you cannot pay their school fees and all that, you cannot feed them. You're more or less on your own. So kila mtu anapambana na hali yake. So Wanjiku, I would tell her to continue doing what she does best. Continue going to the market, continue trading, continue looking for opportunities, and we hope that the government is going to be listening, that Wanjiku actually is the resilient part, is a social safety state that the government has failed to provide for her, and Wanjiku needs to be protected. And Joy,
when you tell Wanjiku to look for opportunities, I mean, these opportunities are there. It's not a lie that President Uhuru Kenyatta has had foreign trips that have come with very many food baskets. The biggest last year was us as Kenyans having to sell our avocados to China. It was very good. Yes, they are there. We know this, but they're just proposals and they are just signatures, right? But when will those amazing fruit baskets and the proposals with these countries bring down and trickle down? I'll come to you, Dr. Chris, in a bit. When will it trickle down to the common pockets of Kenyans? And how easy is it for me to just wake up today morning as an avocado farmer after hear this fantastic news from the trade government? How is it for me to then be part of that China and Kenya trade, for example?
Okay, there's something that what has really happened lately in terms of infrastructure and such kind of signatories, they are promising fruits in the future. In the future. So right now, for example, you know, it takes time to grow an avocado tree and to nurture it and even to comply to the standards.
Right.
You get it. So we want to hope that by the time the avocados grow, for example, by the time Wanjiku starts selling those avocados, that opportunity is still going to be there open for Kenyans. Meanwhile, it's about minimizing risk, doing various things. Much as we know that the roads have come, the infrastructure is good, trade is going to pick up, as we wait for that, we need to jungle different things. You can't rely on just planting avocado to sell to China, or you cannot rely on this good road which is being done there. You have to keep doing different things, and Kenyans are resilient. We call ourselves hustlers, whatever that really means. But I think it means that it's accepting that we're supposed to work hard, remain optimistic, and jungle a lot of things to make ends meet as we wait for the better day to come.
Dr. Chris.
No, you know, you mentioned something about what the president has done in traveling. I have been privileged to have been part of his delegation, and not just him, even the deputy president and even ministers for foreign affairs, trade. I can tell you, we have done extremely well in our international outreach. And we have access to markets. If I tell you Europe, we have EPA. We have access to duty-free, quarter-free. America, we have AGOA. And it is still duty-free, quarter-free. We are discussing even post-AGOA now. China, we signed the SPS. And now our avocados are being allowed. And we had an issue of tariffs because our avocado was being charged 30% of tariff. So we said, even if you allow us, it won't help the Wanjiku. So we went and we negotiated. And I want to tell you, just last week, China reduced the tariff from 30% to 7%. And that is very good progress. So it means those farmers who are doing avocado, now there's a market. And a market in China of you're talking about 1.5 billion people. Even if you go to only 100 million or 50 million people buying.
But what about the high standards of those avocados, the type of avocados?
No, I think we are working on that. Already they started with they could not allow fresh. they said freeze. So we are doing freezing, and then it goes. But we are negotiating and discussing, because this is a matter of science. It's about meeting the requirements. And I think Mcfie is working with the stakeholders. I can tell you very soon a number of farms in Kenya will be exporting direct to Kenya, to China. Okay. So I think there is hope. I want you to just sometimes also appreciate the fact that we have done much, and I want to tell Wanjiku and others. Yes, and I think Wanjiku should know there is opportunity, as she put it, but not here. Don't look at just Kenya. Let's organize ourselves through our cooperatives, through other ways, and we are working with them directly to make sure that we take their goods to the international market. That's why we don't need to say protect us, because our eggs are, eggs. You could be in that sector, but you could be in avocado, you could be in coffee, you could be in tea. And you cannot have a market here. You need to have a market out there. Okay. So we always need to balance the way we look at things.
All right, let's talk about this issue of turnover tax. How exactly is this going to work? Because there's a very big controversy around it. Because how do you draw the line between taxing the business and supporting their growth?
Thank you very much. First of all, before we go on how it is going to work, let's try to understand what it is. And one of the things that I mentioned earlier is that the turnover tax is part of tax base expansion. Okay. And one of the key things that we look at in tax is how do we manage the tax burden? How do we share the tax burden? As I said, every person who has income is supposed to pay taxes if we are to follow the fairness principle, which is key in taxation. The issue of taxation of informal sector is what now brought in the issue of turnover tax. The challenges that countries all over the world face is taxation, how to tax the informal sector. The reason is, the informal sector, one thing is that they are largely mobile and they don't keep records. Then, how then do you bring them into the tax net in line with the fairness principle? You have to devise a legal framework that will enable them to pay their fair share of taxes. It might not be the same framework that is used by multinationals or big entities. So you have to find a way of having a simpler model. And that is what the turnover tax is all about, is to provide a framework that simplifies taxation. And by saying that you just levy 3% of your turnover, is that not simple enough? We can go into the issue of why can't we then don't put it on gross, put it on the net? But these people don't keep records. How then will you now say that you have to keep records, yet they don't have that capacity? Again, the current legislation, if you read it carefully, it doesn't just force the small trader to pay the 3%. There is an option. If you feel that the 3% is not fair to you, you can still apply to the commissioner to be in the normal tax framework, which means you'll have to keep records and calculate the taxes, file returns at the end of the year, and do much more that is done by the other bigger companies. Okay. Yes.
So what happens if I run at a loss? Let's be very practical. 100,000 shillings is my turnover. My cost is about 70,000. I ran into debt for about 30,000. It means already I'm running at a negative. Do I still have to pay a turnover on my 100,000 shillings, which is not what I make anyway?
But as I said, turnover presumes that you don't keep records. How will you know how much losses?
So then how will you know how much I'm supposed to pay then?
That is why,
if you don't have my records, I could easily say I'm giving you 100. That's my 3%. How would you know?
That is a very good question, because it has come before. KRA has a very elaborate infrastructure to know whether you are declaring the right turnover or not.
So then because you know my net. If I'm running at a loss, you will know that I'm running at a loss, and therefore I shouldn't pay the tax.
Which is an alternative that you could pick, but you have to now give us the records. The issue that I was alluding to is that when you do business, you don't do business with yourself. You do business with other people. And those people provide us with records. Or our systems enable us to read the records from those other people, because they'll file returns. So we'll know that you did business with A, B, and C, And this should be have been.
So if I run at a loss, will I be exempted from the tax?
No, because that is why I said the taxation of the informal sector has to take a different direction.
Yeah.
And it is presumed that if you are in a business, a small business that you make a turnover of say 1 million,
Yeah.
based on some research work that you have done, you'll find that on a presumed basis, the taxes that you should pay should be on 3% of that turnover.
By the way,
What you have done is very elaborate. And when you go to, I want to take you, for example, to other countries that follow a presumed basis of taxing the informal sector. Go to Tanzania and check what they are doing. It's also based on a presumed figure or a presumed percentage. Go to countries like Europe, South Asia. You'll find the same kind of framework to enable them bring in the small sector into
all right,
the tax.
Jim, I hear what Maurice is saying. You know, taxation, fairness, equality, etc. But when you hear as a Kenyan, given our economy, where we are as a nation, and how our politics affects our economy, given how our very negative unemployment rates, is it truly fair then at the end of the day, as a Kenyan, to still pay this 3% tax, even if I have not? Even if I don't have a positive turnover, I'm already struggling to make ends meet and paying taxes on these other things. And we talked about fairness, and I understand. But is it fair?
Well, I think the first thing to do, or that we should consider, is look, this is not a new tax. Number one, this tax has been in existence in Kenya. It has failed miserably. KRA will not admit that, but that is a fact. It has failed miserably. Now, you see, the point is, you know, you're bringing in a number of principles, okay, and, you know, these principles were laid down by that father of economics who wrote that book in 1735, okay, Adam Smith. But one of the things here is, I think, you know, in other countries, you've got to remember that people do actually have all sorts of ways by which you're going to record what your turnover is and so on. If it's working in Tanzania and it's not working here in Kenya, you know, we have to really ask ourselves why that is the case. I think one of the things here is the concept of efficiency.
Yeah.
If I have turnover of 1 million shillings, I'm going to pay tax, if I do pay turnover tax, of 30,000 shillings a year. Turnover 1 million, 3% of that figure is going to be 30,000. How much will it actually cost KRA to get that 30,000 out of me? Now, we've got to remember that a lot of the smaller people in Kenya are working in a cash economy.
Yeah.
So even, for example, if they don't have a record of what their profit is or their loss, and they have to actually, you know, I was buying shirts from a lady yesterday, and she said, look, they come to me very, very cheaply. I don't know whether she's stolen them or not, but I don't ask those questions. But anyway, the fact is, she said, look, I've got to pay my school fees for my children. I need you to buy some things, okay? Now, again, the concept of profit, obviously she must be operating at a profit. If she's not operating at a profit, she won't continue to operate. So, you know, we're talking about a loss, if I make a loss and so on, but I think we can exaggerate that situation now. You've got to remember that very many small and micro enterprises in Kenya, they exist because they're forced to exist. Why? I can't get a job. I must start selling matunda on the side of the road. So I'm forced into entrepreneurship. How is KRA actually going to ensure that they're collecting 3% of that amount? To my mind, it's going to be incredibly difficult, and it's failed in the past, and I can assure KRA that it's going to fail again in the future. Because when you are talking about what do you tell Wanjiku, I would say the first thing you've got to tell Wanjiku, and what you've got to tell everyone in Kenya, is what you were talking about a little bit earlier, honesty. For example, let's go back to avocados. Kenya has a terrible reputation in Europe about avocados. Why? Because we pick them before they should be picked. We put overripe fruit. We put. I'm in a company, okay, where we've got a new managing director, Martin O'Cheng. he goes to the customer. He's a genius, this man. He goes to the customer and he asks the customer, hey, what's wrong with our produce? Kenya, we don't want to touch you. That's the reputation that we have. So Wanjiku, first of all, what she's got to do first of all is talk to her husband and say, Bwana, you got to start working. Because too many men in Kenya are not working. Maneno is not working. This is the thing, we got to understand, men have got to work in Kenya. We've got to become a more productive nation. Our productivity is low.
Okay.
And talking, you know, here we are, we think we're doing work. This is maneno too.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the first thing. But you also, you know, we're talking about the loans which are going to be given to people. I'm in a company, we give a loan to a coffee farmer. He has to deliver coffee to us. He doesn't do that, he delivers it to another company. So he gets his money and we've given him a loan. So we have to, you know, every man, woman and child in Kenya has got to become honest.
Okay.
If we don't do that, we are shooting ourselves in the foot.
Okay.
And the avocado trade,
Yeah.
it's not going to be the boom that we talk about unless we realize, look, think about the customer. Don't deliver your avocados before they're ripe. Don't
Okay.
pick them from the trees before, you know, they should be picked.
All right.
And we've got to have that discipline.
Okay.
Wanjiku's got to understand, look, the customer is king.
So discipline and integrity.
Integrity.
All right,
This is
Dr. Chris.
absolutely.
I must thank Jim because I think he's helping me on that.
Yeah.
At least he's not directing the government. But I think what he's raising is important because there is a responsibility also on the producer.
Yeah.
Make sure you produce, having in mind the market requirements.
Yeah.
And I think that's the point. But coming to this issue of presumptive tax, it's called a presumptive tax. That's why you use the word presume. The one truth is, so many Kenyans are not paying taxes.
Yeah.
That is a fact. Yet so many Kenyans expect the government to meet certain obligations for them, be it education, health, and many others.
Yeah.
So government needs more money, and we need to get.
But I don't think the reason why those things are not built is because of lack of taxation. There's so many things. Corruption is also...
No. Let's not mix them.
Yes.
Let's handle corruption differently.
Yes.
But let's collect what is due for government.
Yes.
This issue of equity is important. We all pay taxes. All of us who are employed, we pay. We don't have a choice. You pay.
Yeah.
But there are so many people who are not paying taxes. And yet you expect government to do something.
Is expanding the tax bracket a
yes, we
solution?
want the tax base to be increased. Of course, if you are buying anything, you get through VAT. That's okay. Everything is a sales tax. For all sales where they are vatable, we will get them. But for people who are doing business and they don't declare income, then you know that's a problem. And this is why I think this presumptive tax is good in a way, because if you feel that you are going to be asked to pay when you are not making a profit, you are also forced to ensure that you improve your books of accounts. You make sure you keep your records. And if you keep your records, you can then file your returns and you don't have any obligation to pay when you have not paid taxes. This issue of keeping records is very important. And I think if you look at the study that was done recently, it shows that 75% of all micro, small and medium enterprises, of all businesses in Kenya, fall under MSMEs. Micro, small and medium enterprises. But majority of them are in informal sector. They don't keep records. So how do
they don't know accounting?
Yes.
They don't know how to account.
So that is the point. Yeah.
I'm going to speak like I'm going to speak from economics training. I'm going to argue from the context at where the country, where the economy is, and what is surrounding us. In principle, the concept is good, but in practical, it is the wrong thing to do in this country at such a time as this. Look, we're already milking a tired cow. We milked the corporate sector, they're closing down, right? And now we are still insisting the best strategy to make the cow produce milk is to milk it further. That's basically what it sounds like. Now let's now talk economics here. We're talking about a government that is broke at the moment. A government that is facing serious austerity measures, beyond tea, beyond snacks. KPLC must have laughed when they were told that to reduce TT is nothing to them, but that's a discussion for another day. We are talking about austerity measures beyond tea, beyond snacks, beyond benchmarking. We are talking about austerity measures that must touch on already existing budget. We sit down, we rebudget again. We see what is the actual cost of delivering this service, and in the first place, before we deliver it, is it necessary, is it important? Those are the kind of austerity measures we are talking about. And we also come and agree that we are not going to public service to get rich. You want to get rich, become an entrepreneur.
So for you, it's not the percent tax, it's the time it's coming in.
Now,
But
back
also,
to
Joy,
this
what
task
I'm wondering
now.
is, you know,
now this task is going to, the way it is going to mess the economy even further. You see, right now we're talking about a government which is about to face serious austerity measures, meaning that for some time, Wanjiko social services may suffer. Budget cuts will run across even the social services. Wanjiko is going to be much more vulnerable more than before.
But Joy, these are the Wanjikos who've not been paying tax. So we are just expanding the tax bracket.
Yes,
and by the way,
that's the
KRA's prediction is that if all of us pay tax, we will be self-sustaining.
Yes.
So these are people who are not paying tax from the onset.
You see, look here, there's something we call, in every economy, there has to be a social safety network. A social safety network ensures that if Wanjiko and Kamau and Owar and everybody else are falling out of jobs, the government has a social safety network, but they can easily bounce into, and they don't have to live below a particular standard of living. If Wanjiko has got 9 children and no household, a social safety state is supposed to ensure that Wanjiko can access decent housing, can feed our children, because the government has got that kind of support.
Which comes back to the same thing. How
No,
do they
the
collect
government does
revenue
not
to
have
build
that.
all those
Listen,
things if
the
most
government
people
does
are
not
paying?
have that.
I think
Now,
Yeah.
Wanjiko's
Let her
resilience,
finish,
Wanjiko's resilient is a social safety net which the government does not provide for him. Look, he said that these
But they cannot
businesses.
provide
We
that
need the
revenue.
taxes
That's
to
what I'm
provide the
wondering.
safety
No.
Yes.
Let me tell you something. We must agree that the concept is good, but the timing is wrong. You cannot start saying that now you want to poke holes into something which is just bound to fail, because the moment you start that, these businesses did not happen, right?
Yeah.
They were forced. What will happen that the most natural instinct is we won't go. Because
from
you
your
go there, you
perspective,
ask all to make a
how
loss,
does then the government
they still
balance?
follow you.
Yeah.
The government balancing is, and the best option for now, taxing the informal sector in a context with weak and non-existent civil social state, and a government that is facing serious austerity measures is a big mess to the economy. It's going to be a big mess. Okay. What is important right now is hang this on until the government clears their houses. They're able to sort of like manage and live within their means.
Okay.
Because the truth is, thinking, this simplistic view of if you can't afford bread, eat cake.
Doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
Please, let's
No,
hear
you
from
know,
Chris.
it doesn't
I'll come to
It's a
Dr.
very
Raina, but
simplistic
let's hear from
view.
Chris.
I would not like to come here and appear very defensive. Sometimes it's good to say the truth.
Yes.
I think what she's saying may make sense, but I also want to tell her that that social safety net requires funding.
Yes.
It cannot be anywhere. The government has to get money. That's why we are saying, let every Kenyan pay their tax obligation. It doesn't matter whether you're getting 1 shilling or 2 shilling within the laws that exist. So let's not mix up. Let's handle corruption, and it's being handled. More than any other time. I think you've seen the seriousness with the government has done on that matter of handling corruption. And then it's also with private sector and others. So I think Kenyans, I want to say this. I'm a member of government, and I have a family out there. I have children. I have relatives. They are not employed like me. So when I speak as a member of government, I also represent. I talk about those people who are out there. I think on this we need to support government, and I think somebody is saying patriotic. It's called patriotic tax. Let's just pay our tax obligation.
I'll give Maurice and Jim the last say because we need to move to employment. Jim, then Maurice.
Yeah. No, I think one of the things that we got to keep in mind, you see, is the following. If you take Germany is a population of 83 million people. 40 million people, almost 41 million people, are in employment. They're paying tax. So we're talking about a social safety net medicine, for example, you go into hospital in Germany, you'll get free medical treatment. The UK has a population of 65 million. 30 million people are in employment. So income tax in those two countries, okay, is pretty high. If you become sick in the UK, you go to the National Health Service. Some people will say it's useless. When I was in India 7 years ago, there were some English people there saying, look, we have to wait so long in England, let's go to India instead. We have a population of 47 million. How many people are in formal employment in Kenya? 2.5 million people. It's not 23 million, it's 2.5 million.
Population of 47.
The taxes are raised on those people, and also, of course, the rest of the wananchi, because don't forget, everyone, if I, in fact, buy this thing here, I'm paying VAT. If I drink this water, I'm actually giving income to KRA at the moment.
Yeah.
Okay? So we got to keep that in mind. But we have to remember that when we start talking about social safety nets, someone has got to pay the money. So, you know, we can't talk about social safety nets in a population of 47 million people where 2.5 million people are in formal employment. This is from a textbook. It's not in reality. You got to, you know, how many people in academia have even run a business? They don't know what, you know, I asked a group of students one, I want to expand my business, what do you do? Before I could even finish the word do, the fellow said, get a loan. This is, you know, we have to educate ourselves in Kenya to understand, look, there is the reality on the ground. We can't have a social safety net. Wanjiku has got those 9 children probably from 9 different men. Because, you know, Kenya is the land of the single mother. I'm supporting a child, okay, at university, okay. Her mother has got 6 children from 6 different men. So no wonder she's got a problem paying fees, because there's no man working. That's why I said to Wanjiku, tell your husband to start working. A lot of husbands, pumzika, maneno is work. No, maneno is maneno.
Okay.
Work. We've got to become a more productive nation.
Okay.
If we don't do that...
And we've seen our drinking culture and how that has affected certain counties. Dr. Maurice had a point.
Yes, when I listened to her speaking, I inferred that she was actually saying that we suspend taxes. Yes, that is what I inferred. Because when you say this is the wrong time.
The informal sector. Informal sector.
But then I talked about the issue of fairness. How do you say that this sector should not be taxed while these other people should pay taxes? And I want to clarify something. Taxation of the informal sector is not a new thing, and you mentioned it. What we have done in the law is to simplify how they should pay the taxes. It is not that they, assuming we say that now we suspend the issue of TOT, we'll say that, but under the law, you are supposed to pay taxes, and this is what the law provides. Are we going to then kill what we now call the informal sector? Because the normal tax regime is very punitive in terms of compliance. It needs a taxpayer to do a lot of things, which at that level of informal sector, they might not be able to do. And it becomes more punitive, actually, in terms of enabling the sector will automatically kill it.
Okay, and we need to move to employment because of time.
If
can we
go
move
to employment, let's
very
go.
quickly because of time. My first question on employment would be how we've seen even multinational companies, the flour companies, having to close shop last year. I remember one company had to lay off 1,700 workers. That's just one industry. Certain companies within betting had also had to close shop. That also left so many young people without jobs. At the end of the day, and Dr. Chris, perhaps you could take this question, is the Jubilee government, is the government that you serve under deliberately making it, we say the government should create a favorable working environment. That way I can have a business, not to create the employment, but create a working environment that allows me to do that. Is the Jubilee government genuinely doing so?
Yes, the answer is yes. We may not be perfect. You know, there could be a few mistakes here and there, but I think if you look at the programs of government, we are working so hard. I mean, if you talk of the Big Four agenda, the problem is, of course, there are things we are doing now, but the impact will be felt much later. You know, but just to agree with one thing, the unemployment situation in Kenya is actually a worrying one.
It is.
I go to the village. I just came from, you know, I was at home for Christmas, and virtually, you know, all the people that wanted to see me, everybody wants a job. And if you do an average, for every family, maybe they have 2 or 3 children who are actively looking for a job. And the situation is that we are getting more and more young people getting out of school and they want jobs. Yeah. And I think this is why we have had also many programs like TVET program. We need to make sure that we up the game, and we make sure that when they come out, they have skills. And when we talk about this employment, we really don't have to go for a white-collar job, that you can get a business start. If you are an artisan, you are a plumber and all that, you can get into that business and start working on it. But the point is, if you also look at indicators like ease of doing business, which is done independently by World Bank, and you see that because of the measures we have put in place, there has been tremendous improvement from a ranking of 136 in 2014 when the Jubilee government came, to now a ranking of 56. That is like 100, almost 100 steps or 80 steps up. And that is reflected also in what you see. But of course, every economy, even if you look at the world over, US, America and others, there is what you call the boom and a slump, you know, economic cycles. So sometimes when we are in a cycle like we have facing challenges now, we don't just read like things are really bad and we see doom. We will get out of this. I think for me, if we keep our eyes focused on the programs that we have, and I think this government is very focused on that. None other than the president himself has personally been really keen to see that we address all these programs.
Jim, where's the disconnect? The economy is growing and the jobs.
Is that the people at the top are completely disconnected from the people at the bottom. Okay? And, you know, the situation here, okay, is we have to keep in mind that there are certain people in power in Kenya. If I want to start a business, there is an individual who will want 20% of that business. When that happens, and I have examples that I could give you of that, name names. If a business does not start in Kenya, what's the problem? The problem is that we're adding to our unemployment problem. In South Africa, unemployment of youth is 58%. That means that there are more people, young people, out of a job than in a job. And we have the same problem in Kenya. We talk about statistics, but the real statistics on the ground are different. I was listening to a conversation the other day from someone from the National Bureau of Statistics. This person is in a high position in the National Bureau of Statistics, and he is totally out of touch with what's happening on the ground in Kenya. So the point is, for example, if I want to buy a glass of Senator, if the price of this goes from 20 shillings to 40 shillings, I cannot pay it. Why? Because I earn 200 shillings a day. The CS, I'm sure that all of us here probably came this morning in Pajeros. I didn't, because I try to live on my salary. I don't want anything more than that. But a lot of other people, I once was on a TV station. I said, well, you know, you're nice Pajero. He said, at the end of the program, he said, how do you know I drive a Pajero? I said, because you're a typical Kenyan. And I met a very rich person who came from Dubai to Nairobi. He said, there are some seriously rich people in this country. So those people, those are the new Wazungu.
Okay. And Jim, I'm going to ask you this question specifically because you seem so passionate about it, and really any of the panelist members can also jump into it. Paint for me a correlation between a healthy economy and the psychology of a state. Moso, bring it down for me, the basic family unit. You talked about, we know our drinking culture in Kenya and how that affects our employment. You gave an example of a Senate unemployment rate. You look at an employment rate in any country, then look at its criminal gang rate. Yes. You know, so bring for me an image of a correlation of a healthy economy translating to a healthy basic family unit.
Well, you see, first of all, we have to have good families in Kenya. And unfortunately, we've gone in the opposite direction here. If you take the family, 50 years ago in Kenya, it was a strong unit. In India, the family is a strong unit. It's being eroded by Western culture. Unfortunately, the Western world, American culture, European culture, is destroying not only those countries, but it's our youth are on their phones the whole time. They're getting polluted with the culture which they are importing from those countries abroad.
So how does a healthy economy correlate to a health, the psychology of a basic family
in
unit?
This particular case, let's suppose that everyone in Kenya was honest. I have a debt, I owe this man 100,000 shillings, I pay him 100,000 shillings, okay? If we had everyone in Kenya honest and hard-working, we would be able to compete with South Korea, with Vietnam, with China. There's a gentleman who's building a steel plant in Mombasa. I said, how are you going to compete with China? Because there were 4 steel plants in South Africa. They had eliminated barriers. 3 of the steel plants closed down. They couldn't compete with China. Now, this is a man who's investing in a steel plant in Mombasa, and he gave me all the reasons why he can actually compete with China.
Will he make it?
And well, I don't know, but I think he will, because so far he's been a very, very successful. He's written a book about himself. Guru is his name. But that man, again, is a genius, okay? But you see, and all of the people that he employs in his factories are Kenyans. He doesn't have one expatriate, not one. Okay. But so the point here really, if we were all honest, if we did the work that we're meant to do instead of payukering the whole day, okay, we would be a different country, let's face it. Okay. And also, I had a friend, okay, a schoolmate, who used to say, well, look, I have to have dinner every day with my family. He has 3 sons. They're incredibly successful young men. But every day he was at home having dinner with his wife and his 3 sons.
Okay.
The normal thing is the telephone rings, the father runs out of the room, and the result, I was teaching a class of postgraduates last night, okay? The phone rings, a fellow runs out of the room. We're slaves of those telephones.
Okay.
So we've got to change. We ourselves, I have got to be an honest individual. Okay. Everyone. Because KEBS, it's full of corruption. Okay. NEMA, full of corruption. KRA, full of corruption. The private sector, full of corruption. Okay. As a lady at the Institute of Directors a couple of months ago, a lady said, look, corruption is even in our primary schools. And I could tell you a story how that illustrates it.
Hopefully another day. That one will be for another day because of time.
We have really run out of time, but I'll give you 30 seconds each for closing remarks.
Yeah, now, about the issue of employment, one thing I'm excited about today's topics is that they are all the same. Yeah. Talk about employment, talk about trade, and talk about debt. They are all the same thing we are talking about. Now, everybody here seems to be very unhappy that there's unemployment, and they feel like it's a really difficult time, but we'll push through it. That's what the government is telling us, especially those who are here. Now, the truth is, there is unemployment and it is real. And how are people coping? They are jungling Fuliza and Tala and Branch to sell potatoes by the roadside. Okay. The taxman here wants to come and tell him it doesn't matter whether you have making profits or not, you must pay your taxes. What is better for me? Remain unemployed na serikali saidia, do a WhatsApp group or ask people to changa for me. Because you try to borrow loans, the taxman comes after you. You get it. So unemployment is real. Okay. Let us make it easier for Kenyans to do whatever they can by themselves, using their own resilience, and set up something for themselves. Okay. And taxman, let them be.
Okay. All right, Maurice, your closing comments.
Thank you very much. They say that taxes are the essence of civilization. And it is important that as a country, we feel proud when we pay our taxes. And it is only better if, however the size of business that you run, that you pay the fair share, and it is fair share, not more, not a shilling more, not a shilling less. And it is important that even the informal sector, who also enjoy the infrastructure and the social services that are provided by the government from the taxes they pay, should also be proud when they pay a fair share of their taxes.
Okay.
Yes.
Dr. Chris.
Thank you very much. I think the conversation for Kenya now should be about economy. And I think we need to discuss more about our economy. The more we discuss about it, the more we understand and we know who is responsible for what. So that we avoid a situation where we do blanket, condemnation.
Yeah.
But I want to say this, from where we sit as trade, in the Ministry of Trade, we are doing our best.
Okay.
Because there is a direct correlation between trade and the economy. When trade improves, especially if we push our exports to go up, if you look at our share of trade in GDP, it has declined to around 7% now. It used to be around 12%. We are hoping we can push it back. We are hoping to create more markets, promote, get more products and get into the international market.
Right.
And I think the future looks very good for us because we have secured the markets. What we need to do is to work with the counties to take advantage of those markets.
Right.
And I'm talking about reality.
Yeah.
Time will tell.
Yeah, right. No, we have the opportunity.
Yeah.
The opportunity is there now. So we need everybody to take up the opportunity. It can't be government.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you so much for making time for us this morning. Dr. Chris Kipto, PS Trade, Dr. Jim Mcfie, Accounting Lecturer at Strathmore University, Maurice Oray, Deputy Commissioner Corporate Policy, KRA, and Joy Kiru, Economist. Thank you so much for making time. Oray has been called as the tax man. But let's see what you're saying online on 22422. Let's bring them up and see what you're saying. And also at Citizen TV Kenya, Trevor Mbija, at Zinzi_K. Tom Luangu says SMEs already pay for trade licenses to the county government. The turnover tax is a double taxation. Besides, you don't impose patriotism tax on citizens.
Okay, use the hashtag Daybreak. Nixon, good morning. You say Winston Churchill once, one time said, and I quote, we contend that for a nation to try to tax itself into prosperity is like a man standing in a bucket and trying to lift himself up by the handle.
All right. You don't leave a name, but you're saying, as a public servant, some amount is deducted on payslip to pay KRA as tax. Is it fair to tax the same public servant when he or she opens up a small business?
Sean, good morning to you. You say paying taxes when you are making losses equals to closing the business. KRA is just not realistic. When you close down the business, where will they get the tax they're working hard to get?
Steve Juma says, is increasing the tax base the only political economic policy? Let's cut spending and seal all the looting loopholes.
Okay. Edgar, you say Wanjiko, lipa ushuru. We need to support our government.
All right.
That one seems to be siding with the taxman.
All right. That's where we leave it for now. But the next now is time for breakfast.
Yes.
Breakfast tips.
Kimani Mbugwa is going to be taking us through breakfast today.
Yeah.
Oh, where? Okay.
It's you, actually.
We
You've been
will be
nominated
taking
to do
we
it.
will be taking you through breakfast in just a little bit. See you in a bit.